Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV News. This is Zaryan Rahman with top stories. First, the headlines. US elections. Obama calls for democratic unity. Major and Blair say an EU exit could split the UK. Muhammad Ali Memorial begins with Muslim prayer service. Yemen conflict, UN accuses Saudis of pressure over blacklist. And Euro 2016, France kick-off tournament amid security. Here's now the detail. Mr. Obama stopped short of calling for Mr. Sanders to drop out, instead saying the Vermont senator had made Mrs. Clinton a better candidate. The two men are due to meet at the White House later on Thursday.
The Democratic Party to have
Afterwards, President Obama is tipped to formally endorse Mrs. Clinton and call for the party to unite. Speaking on NBC's Tonight Show, Mr. Obama admitted the race had been ouchy. But he went on to say this was welcome. It was a healthy thing for Democratic Party to have a contested primary. I thought that Bernie Sanders brought enormous energy and new ideas, and he pushed the party and challenged them. I thought it made Hillary a better candidate. He added, my hope is that over the next couple of weeks, we're able to pull things together. Mrs. Clinton won 4 out of 6 primaries on Tuesday, giving Mr. Sanders virtually no path to the nomination. Despite this, he said he planned to fight for every vote in the next primary, the last before the nomination convention next month. During his interview, Mr. Obama said he was worried for the Republicans, saying the US needed a healthy two-party system, that this is a serious job, he said. You know, this is not reality TV. I've seen the decisions that have to be made and the work that has to be done. He added in a clear barb aimed at Mr. Trump, a former star of TV series The Apprentice.
We're just going to stay in. And it's like,
Yeah, I'm going to be talking tomorrow. He's going to be coming to the White House. And the main role I'm going to be playing in this process is to remind the American people that this is a serious job. This is not reality TV. I've seen the decisions that have to be made and the work that has to be done. And I have a lot of confidence that if the American people are reminded of what's at stake and all the incredibly important issues that we got to get right, that they're going to make a good choice. That's what they usually do.
Thanks to you, we've reached a milestone, she told cheering crowds at a rally in New York. Mrs. Clinton hailed the first time in our nation's history that a woman will be a major party's nominee. Hours later, she won the California Democratic primary, further cementing her hold on the nomination. In all, she won 4 of the 6 states voting in primaries on Tuesday, also taking New Jersey, South Dakota, and New Mexico. Her rival Bernie Sanders found victory in the Montana and North Dakota caucuses and has refused to quit the race. Polls have suggested the contest in California would be tied, but Mrs. Clinton won by a margin of around 13%. Mr. Sanders had been hoping for a win in that state, the country's most populous, to boost his campaign and bolster his claim to be a more viable presidential contender than Hillary Clinton. As the votes were being counted, he told supporters he would remain in the race and contest the remaining primary in the District of Columbia on June 14th, despite acknowledging it was a very steep fight. Mr. Sanders aims to sway superdelegates to support him instead of Mrs. Clinton at a party's convention in July, but commentators say the Vermont senator is unlikely to succeed in his bid for the nomination. Mrs. Clinton already had enough delegates to qualify as the Democratic nominee. Sir John Major and Tony Blair warned a vote to leave the EU will jeopardize the unity of the UK as they campaign together in Northern Ireland. They suggested a leave vote may reopen Scotland's independence issue and put Northern Ireland's future at risk by threatening its current stability. But Northern Ireland Secretary Theresa Villiers said support for the peace process there was rock solid. She said it would be highly irresponsible to suggest otherwise. The DUP's deputy leader Nigel Dodds agreed, saying the ex-PM's comments were dangerous, destabilizing and should not be happening. Elsewhere in the EU referendum debate, the former Conservative and Labour Prime Ministers who were instrumental in the Northern Ireland peace process in the 1990s hit the campaign trail there as Remain campaigners attempted to make the future of the UK a key question in the 23rd June referendum on EU membership. Worshippers and fans of Muhammad Ali are attending a Muslim prayer service to honor the legendary boxer in his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. The 2-day funeral was planned by Ali in the years before his death, according to a family spokesman. Ali wanted the Muslim prayer service, known as a janazah, to be a teaching moment, according to Imam Zaid Shakir, who is leading the service. Muhammad Ali, the greatest, died on Friday, aged 74. Over 14,000 people have tickets to the event at the site of Ali's last fight in Louisville in 1961. American Muslims attending the service and watching on TV say they are hopeful that the public prayer will help Americans to become more familiar with Islam and its practices. In 1964, Ali famously converted to Islam, changing his name from Cassius Clay, which he called his slave name. He first joined the Nation of Islam, a controversial black separatist movement, before later converting to mainstream Islam. He traveled the world as a boxer and speaker and inspired Muslims around the world. Abdul Rafi Bashir, 25, came all the way from Chicago for the service because he sees Ali as an ambassador for Muslims. He said the prayer service would help to demystify his religion. The funeral will continue on Friday with an interfaith memorial service and procession to Louisville, passing key locations such as Ali's childhood home and a museum dedicated to him. Speaking after prayers, Dr. Sherman Jackson used a boxing term to describe how Ali put the question of whether a person can be a Muslim and an American to rest. Indeed, he KO'd that question. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says he faced unacceptable pressure to remove the Saudi-led coalition fighting in Yemen from a blacklist over child casualties. Mr. Ban said a number of countries had threatened to cut off vital funding for many UN programs. He said the decision to remove them from the UN list of violators of children's rights was one of the most painful he'd had to make. Saudi Arabia denies the threats. The UN announced on Monday that it had temporarily removed the Saudi-led coalition from the child's rights blacklist, which was published last week. In his first public remarks following the announcement, Mr. Ban said he decided to do so after Saudi Arabia, along with some other Arab and Muslim countries, threatened to cut off funding to UN humanitarian programs. He said he had to consider the very real prospect that millions of other children would suffer grievously if, as was suggested to me, countries would defund many UN programs. It is unacceptable for member states to exert undue pressure, Mr. Ban told reporters at UN headquarters. Human rights groups had sharply criticized the decision to take Saudis off the list, saying the UN chief's office had hit a new low. Silvio Berlusconi to have heart surgery. IS suspect Jihadi Jack's parents in court charged with terrorism offences. Ramadan meal row prompted German fire at Dusseldorf shelter. Australia police shoot man and injured 3 bystanders. Meaningful progress impossible without women, PM. Let's move on to the next news. Former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi is to have heart surgery after an attack that could have killed him, his doctor says. The 79-year-old will undergo surgery by the middle of next week to replace a defective aortic valve. Berlusconi's condition was nothing to worry about, his party said. Berlusconi served as Prime Minister 4 times but has since been convicted of tax fraud and bribery. He risked his life, he risked dying, and he knew it. We have identified in an exact and certain way of pathology of aortic valve that is called aortic insufficiency, the doctor said. There's only one way to correct it, which is the substitution of the aortic valve. Berlusconi, a billionaire businessman who leads the Forza Italia party, was taken into hospital for tests in his home city, Milan, earlier this week. His preferred candidate in Rome's mayoral election on Sunday, property tycoon Alfio Marchini, made such a poor showing that he failed to make the runoff round. Berlusconi's business interests include the Mediaset TV company and football team AC Milan. The parents of a man alleged to have traveled to Iraq to join the so-called Islamic State group have appeared in court charged with terrorism offences. Jack Letts, 20, from Oxford, dubbed Jihadi Jack by some newspapers, is said to have left UK aged 18. His parents, John Letts and Sally Lane, appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court. They have denied making money available for suspected terrorism. The pair were remanded in custody to appear at the Old Bailey on June 23rd. They are both charged with 3 counts of arranging the availability of property or money to another person knowing or having reasonable cause to suspect it could be used for the purpose of terrorism. It is alleged the couple, both of Charlesville Road, Oxford, transferred £223 on 2nd September last year, £1,000 on 31st December 2015 and £500 on January 4, 2016. Miss Lane is charged with 2 further counts of attempting to provide money or property knowing or having reasonable cause to suspect it could be used for the purpose of terrorism. The court heard she allegedly attempted to send 2 payments of £500 to her son on January 4, 2016. They pleaded not guilty to the charges. The 20-year-old was suspected of being the first white Briton to join the terror group after he left his Oxford home and traveled to Syria last year. German investigators believe a dispute over Ramadan meals led to a fire that gutted a shelter for 282 asylum seekers in the western city of Dusseldorf. They say a group of men who were not fasting had complained that their lunch portions were too small. Two North African men aged 26 have been arrested and charged with arson. The hall was destroyed at a major Dusseldorf convention center close to the city's airport. Damage has been estimated at €10 million, $11 million. The hall was acting as an accommodation hub for men mainly from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan and North Africa who were waiting to be sent elsewhere in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia. 4 people have been injured when police opened fire on a man holding a knife at a busy shopping center in Sydney, Australia. Three women aged between 60 and 82 were hit by bullets and bullet fragments after 2 officers fired at the man. The 23-year-old man, who allegedly approached officers with a knife, was also injured. An independent team will now investigate the circumstances surrounding Thursday's incident. Police were called to an organic food market outside Westfield Shopping Centre at Hornsby in Sydney's north just before midday after shoppers noticed the man acting strangely. New South Wales Police Assistant Commissioner Dennis Clifford said the man was holding a large carving knife and confronted officers when they approached him. He said 2 officers fired shots at the man, who was wounded several times. 2 suicide attacks claimed by so-called Islamic State have killed at least 30 people in and around the Iraqi capital Baghdad, officials say. The first attack targeted a commercial area in the mainly Shia district of Baghdad al-Jadida, leaving 19 dead. A second bomb hit an army checkpoint in Taji, north of the capital, killing 11 people including soldiers. The Sunni jihadist group has frequently attacked security targets and Shia Muslims, whom it considers apostates. The group has intensified its attacks in Baghdad as the Iraqi army continues a major offensive to try to drive it from the IS stronghold of Fallujah, 60 kilometers west of the capital. More than 80 people were injured in the attacks, which happened at about 9. Somali Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab says it has killed 60 Ethiopian soldiers in an attack on an African Union base in central Somalia. The AU mission says it repulsed the attack, killing 110 militants. Residents in Helgen told they had heard a huge bang followed by a heavy exchange of gunfire. MSM supports the government as it fights to regain control of the country from Al-Shabaab. In a series of tweets, it has said its soldiers, alongside troops from the Somali army, drove back the attackers who are now on the run with the joint forces in pursuit. But MSN has not confirmed the death toll in its side. Ethiopia is one of 5 countries contributing troops to the 22,000-strong mission, and this is the first time an Ethiopian-run MSN base has been attacked. Helgen, 260 kilometers north of the capital, Mogadishu, is part of the area of Somalia patrolled by Ethiopian soldiers. Microsoft founder Bill Gates has launched a campaign to help extremely poor families in sub-Saharan Africa by giving them chickens. The billionaire and philanthropist says raising and selling the birds can be efficient to tackle extreme poverty. He has promised to donate 100,000 chickens, and the project's page has already been shared thousands of times. The UN estimates that 41% of people in sub-Saharan Africa live in extreme poverty. Mr. Gates said a farmer breeding 5 hens could earn more than $1,000 a year. The poverty line is about $700. He added that the goal was to help 30% of the rural families in sub-Saharan Africa raise improved breeds of vaccinated chickens, up from the current 5%. Leaving out the women, who make up half the total population of Bangladesh, will not lead to meaningful progress, said Sheikh Hasina. No nation could witness meaningful development leaving out its one segment, so we want to move forward, including all sections of the society, she said when a 6-member delegation of US-based Democracy International, led by Glenn Cowan, met her at her Jatiya Sanshad office in the morning. Former Foreign Minister Dr. Deepu Muni, AL Publicity and Publications Secretary Dr. Hassan Mahmood, and PM's Principal Secretary Mr. Abdul Kalam Azad were among others present at the meeting. The Prime Minister said the trend of participation of women in Bangladesh's politics has increased to a great extent due to various initiatives of the present government. 21 female members have been directly elected to the present parliament, she said, adding now the Prime Minister and the Leader of the House, the Opposition Leader, the Deputy Leader of the House and Whip are women. Hasina said 30% seats in local government bodies like union, upazila, municipal and city corporations have been kept aside for the women. Women sailors have recently been appointed to the Bangladesh Navy for the first time, while the Border Guard Bangladesh (BGB) also recruited female members, she said. The Democracy International team highly appreciated Bangladesh's progress in women empowerment under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's leadership and praised CRI's work. Democracy International (INC), a US-based organization operating in over 40 countries, advises and assists on behalf of governments, ministries and NGOs in democracy and governance projects such as in the conduct of elections, election monitoring and building of multi-party systems. Here's now the business news. The number of jobs lost as a result of the downturn in the UK oil and gas sector could top 1,20,000 by the end of this year, according to a report. Oil and Gas UK estimated 84,000 jobs linked to the industry went in 2015, with 40,000 losses expected this year. It said the offshore industry supported 4,53,000 jobs at its 2014 peak, either directly in its supply chain or in trades such as hotels and taxis. The new figures suggest 3,30,000 jobs would be supported by the end of 2016. The analysis was carried out by marketing services company Experian. Last week, a Bank of Scotland, Lloyds Banking Group survey suggested that a third of UK oil and gas businesses plan to cut jobs further during this year. Many companies have been struggling under the weight of a sustained fall in the price of oil. Oil and Gas UK is due to hold its annual conference in Aberdeen next week to consider how it manages its way through the current downturn. Asian stock markets are falling as concerns grow about the ramifications of the UK potentially leaving the European Union. Japan's economy minister said he was closely watching the referendum because a leave vote would affect operations at Japanese companies. Singapore's Trade Minister has also said Brexit would not be good for the global economic recovery. Japan's Nikkei 225 index fell 0.6% and the broader topics is down 0.7%. Australia S&P ASX 200 index dropped by 1.3%. South Korea's Kospi is 0.3% lower and New Zealand's stock market fell 0.12%. The UK votes on 23rd June on whether to remain or leave the European Union. However, a vote for Brexit may encourage populist movements elsewhere in Europe to push for their own referendums. The future of the whole EU project would then be in doubt, and this could lead some EU politicians to take a third line with the UK regardless of the economic costs. Here's now the sports news. Euro 2016 kicks off on Friday when hosts France face Group A opponents Romania at the Stade de France amid an unprecedented security operation. France remains under a state of emergency after last November's attack on Paris, when 130 people were killed. More than 90,000 police, soldiers and private guards will be deployed at the tournament, with 7 million fans expected to visit the 10 host cities. The US and British governments have both warned fans they could be at risk. But the organizers, UEFA, and the French authorities insist they have done everything possible to keep the 2.5 million spectators expected at the 51 matches safe.
To listen to the bands that are going to play, for the atmosphere, the crowd, it'll be good.
No one's playing, but the Euro starts tonight. I couldn't wait until tomorrow. I'll be here every day for the next 4 weeks, all the way to the finals.
There were at least 10 doing body searches, so there was no wait, which is great. The organisation was good.
For the moment, we feel safe. We went through various controls and searches, which is reassuring. We're not going to barricade ourselves at home. We have to carry on our lives.
Spanish prosecutors have called for Brazil and Barcelona football star Neymar to be tried for fraud. The prosecutors from Spain's top criminal court allege Neymar and his father had hid the true value of the player's multi-million euro transfer from Santos to Barcelona. A Brazilian investment fund that owned 40% of Neymar's sports rights argues it was deprived of its full share. In previous interviews, Neymar, 24, has denied any wrongdoing. Barcelona said it paid 57 million euro for Neymar in 2013, with the player's parents, Neymar da Silva Santos and Nadine Goncalves da Silva Santos, receiving 14 million euro and his former club Santos 17 million euro. But investigators say the fee was closer to 83 million euros and Barcelona concealed part of the deal. The club also denies any wrongdoing. Viewers, let's have a look at Millennium TV News Recap. US elections. Obama calls for democratic unity. Major and Blair say an EU exit could split the UK. Muhammad Ali Memorial begins with Muslim prayer service. Yemen conflict. UN accuses Saudis of pressure over blacklist. And Euro 2016, France kick-off tournament amid security. Viewers, now the details. You're up to date with our top stories so far here on Millennium TV, and don't forget to log in www.millenniumtv.net. Thank you and stay with Millennium TV. Allah Hafiz.